Hi everyone, I'm Sultana Jones, and I've been reading out of my story, The Diary of Leeann Little, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up from where I left off. It was then I spotted something I will never forget. I'm not sure why I was even looking down, yet near the bottom of the wall, beside a wooden chest, there was a hole in the wall, and light was shining through it. I was thrilled. The place was larger than it looked. So I called to John, and he came up the stairs. We quickly found out that John is taller than the ceiling. He kept bumping his head for some reason. I showed him the area, and we went right to work pulling at the makeshift wall until we entered a hidden room. It was like we stepped back in time. There was lace curtains, and 2 dolls, and one was glass with blonde hair, and the other looked like she'd been in a fire. It was a canopy bed with a dusty handmade quilt laying on it. Everything you would find in a child's room, except it had a handmade chair with wheels. In front of the small window was a little desk with a pen and ink and a leather-bound book, almost in perfect condition, just sitting there. We looked at each other, very puzzled, wondering why would someone close up all this stuff? It looked as if someone lived here, but whom? Why? I reached down and I opened the book and I entered into the world of Leeann Little. Hi, my name is Leeann Little, and this is my diary. I'm 15 at my last birthday. On account of all that's been happening, I thought it best that I write down some of my thoughts so that when Papa returns, I can tell it to him. Now, where do I start? Well, I was born here on the Little's plantation to Mr. Seymour and Imogene Little. Mama was always full of life. She was like the sound of fresh spring water. Her hair was the color of honey when the sun shone on it. I remember when she would let me brush it. It was like touching corn silk, and it smelled like spring rain. I loved Mama's hair. Papa said I looked just like her. Sometimes I look into the glass and try to remember what she looked like. Her face was as fresh as milk, with rose-petaled cheeks, and Mama had perfect teeth too. None was missing like Mrs. McLean, but then again, she wasn't a busybody like her either. Mrs. McLean lived one house away, and she was always bringing us some new news about something. Papa would head to the reading room when she would come. Papa loved me as I loved him, and he was strong and not afraid of anything, and a man of little words. So when Papa spoke, you listened. Papa had eyes as blue as the spring sky and hair as dark as night. And sometimes when Mrs. McLean would come, I'd follow Papa to the reading room. and I'd sit down next to him, and I'd say, "I don't like that old woman." And right away, Papa would say, "Now you respect your elders. God don't want you to talk about any of his creations." And then he'd pause for a moment, no matter how much they talk. Then he would take me in his lap, and he would read me whatever book he was reading. But Papa loved reading the Bible best. I love Papa. I know he'll be back soon. Hello, I'm back. I love to play outside with my dearest friend Sarah Jean. Her skin was as dark as molasses, and her hair was like lamb's wool, but black like coal. Sarah Jean and I would play in the fields and pick flowers and lay side by side looking at the fluffy clouds go by. Sarah Jean was born here too. Her mama's name is Mammy Joe, and her papa is Big Joe. We stopped and looked at each other. We were reading about Granddaddy and Little and his great Aunt Sarah. John's grandmother spoke of them a lot, and that's what led us here today. I remember one day we was lying down looking at the sky when I asked Sarah Jean, "What's it like to be a slave?" She just stared at the sky for a moment and then said, "I don't really know, seeing that Master Little all I ever known. I ain't never known a whip before. Big Joe tells me of stories of slave ships his papa was on, how awful they was. Men's and women's lined up on the floor like we is now, but with chains on their neck and feet. Every day they check to see if Big Joe's daddy was dead or carried away someone who was dead. Some of them wouldn't get food or water for days and days. Big Joe said his daddy was the only one that made it across. The rest of his family, well, didn't. Mammy Joe would tell me that they would line you up like horses or mules and check your teeth and ears and everything. She was torn from her mammy and sold. Master Little found her working in the cotton fields with Ned strapped on her back. He bought both of them. And then I asked Sarah Jean, "Well, how did Papa get Big Joe?" "Well," she paused. Sarah Jean always started off with "well." That's how I knew she was thinking real hard. "Well, Big Joe don't talk of where he was much before he come here. But one night he said that they had caught some slaves trying to run away. And Big Joe said I'd rather die than to stay where he was. That he'd rather die than to stay where he was. When Master Little found Big Joe, he was tied between two trees being whipped. Master Little told the men to stop and that he wanted to buy Big Joe. So they sold him to Master Little. Big Joe said Master Little told him to take the chains off. But they said if we take the chains off, he'll run. Master Little said he won't run. Big Joe's been here ever since. Sarah Jean looked at me and asked, "What's it like to be free?" Whoops, I've kind of run over a little bit, and I'll read a little bit more for you. This is Sultana Jones saying, reading a little bit of Leeann Little, the Diary of Leeann Little, a story I've written. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.